want you to take a deep breath. And today, as we move into this time of meditation, our only job is to let go. That whatever we've been holding on to, whatever we've been worried about, wherever our fear has been kicked up, today we just let go. Today we turn it all over to God. Today we hold nothing back. We give God our hopes, our dreams, our fears, our insecurities. We let it all go. And we move into the flow of the divine. We move into a level of pure grace. Where there is but one presence and one power at work in our lives, God the good. And today we just get into the river and allow the flow to heal us and bless us and transform us in every imaginable way. That no matter how your life is unfolding in this moment, we let go. And as we let go, we are lifted higher than we've ever been before. We are lifted to a higher, greater level of good. That we are blessed beyond our wildest dreams. So today, let go. Just let go. Take a deep breath and give it all to God. That God is in charge of your life. That God is the one and only power. So in a moment of silence now, I'm going to invite you just to let go. And let God be in charge of every aspect of your life. Over and over again, we let go. And move into the flow of life. That whatever happens each day, whatever moment, whatever this moment brings us, we trust it. We don't argue with it. We don't fight it. We trust it. And we allow every moment to be a perfect expression of the divine. That we are blessed beyond our wildest dreams. So in the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. So online recently, they did a survey on people's top pet peeves. You know, I know as a group that we're so spiritually advanced that I'm sure we don't have any pet peeve. We've gone so far above that in our own spiritual evolution. But I do want to share with you, just so you can know what the unenlightened are talking about at this moment. Number 10, worst pet peeve, is turning without signaling. All right? Number 9, standing too close to another person. Hello? Now this one I have a hard time even believing. Clipping your nails in public. Ooh, gross. Sorry, that was an opinion. Sorry. Little judgment there, slipped right out of there. Spending too much time staring at your phone when you're talking to someone else. Slow walkers. Talking during a movie. Interrupting. Being late. loud chewers and drinkers, and micromanaging, right? You know, that never really bothers me when I micromanage somebody else. I don't find that a problem at all, right? So what we're going to talk about today is non-resistance. And the benefit for me of pet peeves is we get to look at how much we want to control everybody. That we just think there should be a standard of behavior, and we're just so sorry you didn't get the rule book, but don't worry, I'll tell you how to behave so that you can behave appropriately. And for many of us, coming out of our past, coming out of the wounds of the past, we tend to get a little controlling. We tend to be a little resistant. And when I look at my own life, like, where am I the most resistant? And I realized Sunday about 5:30, last Sunday about 5:30 when I was watching the Suns game, that I get a little resistant when, and in fact, you might be surprised to know that I may be even a little competitive, right? When the Suns were getting blown out by 40 points, my level of peace went away. Now, I know some of you aren't really sports fans, but my thing is, I had to turn the TV off. I had to just turn the TV off. I couldn't watch anymore. It was just too disheartening, right? And it reminded me when I was in ministerial school. How many of you have anybody been to Unity Village, where the seminary is? Unity Village? Unity Village has a 9-hole golf course, and if you play it 2 directions, it's actually an 18, but it's really just a 9-hole golf course. They have a 9-hole golf course, and when I was in school, classes ended early on Wednesday, so there were just a couple hours on Wednesday morning, and then all afternoon was open. And it had been a tradition at Unity way back to the Fillmores when they used to do a Wednesday night service, that everything would shut down on Wednesday, about lunchtime, and so that people could prepare for the Wednesday night service. So as students, we just got all Wednesday afternoon off. So a bunch of us would go play golf. And I realized that I had some attachment to the way I played golf. And I could hit a shot and it would trouble my soul, right? Right? And I'd be working all week on my prayer consciousness and just feeling God and feeling the presence of God. And I'd go out there in 2 hours of playing 9 holes of golf, and my prayer consciousness just went. And I realized that for many of us, being non-resistant is more of a concept than a practice. That we get the general idea of being non-resistant. It's the application where we have some problems with, right? And Webster defines non-resistance as the practice or principle of not resisting authority, even when it's unjustly exercised. And I'd like to change that a little bit. It is the practice and the principle of not resisting life, even when life doesn't seem fair. Right? And that when we are in a place of non-resistance, we just trust the activity of God. We just trust the activity of God is moving in us and through us. We just trust life. We trust the moment. And some moments are hard to trust. With all that's going on in our world right now, there's some moments it's like, this isn't right. This is just wrong. This is bad. We should all be burning things down, right? There's that human part of our ego that just wants to cry out in the presence of injustice. There were 10 synonyms that Webster gave for non-resistance. And some of them are just not very attractive, right? Passive, nonviolent, yielding, tolerant, submissive, docile, obedient, meek, resigned, and the one I added was wimpy, right? Right? And non-resistance tends to confront us at our basic level, and it tends to confront our ego. And what I want you to see today is how much time and energy we're spending being upset because we don't want to let go of control. It just is. Let's shoot this PowerPoint up there. And I made this PowerPoint, and you can see why I don't do this for the church. So there's 3 rings. The center ring is me. It's you. It's us. Right? And the center ring is how we see ourselves, how we experience ourselves, how we know ourselves. The next ring out is the world around us and how we experience the life around us. And the third ring out is our desires. And for many of us, this is the way we look at the world. There's me in here and there's a world all around me. And I have to go out into the world to get my needs met. I have to go out to get my, and if the world would just cooperate, I could go out there and get my desires met. I could bring them back into my life. And if everybody would just get in line and act appropriately, it shouldn't be a problem. If everybody would just read the script that I've written for them and do it my way, it would just absolutely not be a problem. And over again, we have this image that my good is out there. But I have to go out into the world to get my good. And if those people would just act right, then it would be so much easier. Remember the old O.J. Simpson commercial that was for Hertz rental car? And he's running through the airport. Nobody's old enough to remember that. There's 3 of us. Great. Right? He's running through the airport trying to get to his rental car, and he's doing all this stuff. And they've got him dressed like he's, a tailback, and he's running through the airport. And that's the way many of us see life, is that there's all these obstacles, there's all these challenges, and we have to get through all these problems, all these challenges, all these obstacles to get our needs met, and then we can run them back into our life, and then we're finally going to be full, we're finally going to be blessed, right? And what I want you to see today is that I have a belief that as our faith increases, our resistance decreases. That it's an inverted relationship. The more I have faith that my needs are going to be met, the more I'm willing to be non-resistant. The more I'm not sure if my needs are going to be met, the more resistant I become to everyone and everything. So as I build my faith, as my faith goes up, my resistance to the moment, my resistance to life, because if I pray in faith, knowing it's the Father's good pleasure, if it's God's good pleasure to give me the kingdom, then if I pray in faith, knowing that it's mine, then I'm not in resistance to the way life works out. I just let it roll because I know it's going to come to me. If I'm not too sure it's going to come back to me, if I don't really believe it's going to come back to me, then I become hyper controlling. I become hyper needy. I want to manipulate everyone and everything because I have a vision about the way it's supposed to go. And if it doesn't go that way, I get upset. Like, if you knew that you were going to win the lottery, would you care if it came from Powerball or Mega Millions? How many of you would give it up if it didn't come from your favorite Powerball, or say if it didn't come from Mega Millions, I just keep your money. I don't want it, right? So that as our faith increases, as our belief in the goodness of God, as our faith increases, that we actually believe in all that our needs are going to be met, our need to resist life, to resist the moment, becomes less and less and less. And as we're working on our faith, we actually let go. And the thing that's interesting about this model for me is that every time we see our desires outside of ourselves, that we have to go get them, it kind of violates the basic spiritual principle that everything that we want, need, and desire has already been given to us, that it's already within us. And then as we see that those desires fulfilled within us, that's why in the week that we talked about visualizing holding a vision for your desires, as we visualize, it actually moves the desire from out there to inside of us. We actually see ourselves living it, accomplishing it, being that thing. And so over and over again, when you have a vision for your life, when you have a desire for your life, the more that you can visualize yourself experiencing that, the more that desire moves from out there to in here, and it becomes the center of who we are. It becomes our essence. It becomes the truth. And so see it. Florence Shen says this, nothing on earth can resist the absolutely non-resistant person. Nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. So feel that. How much faith would you need to live your life in absolute non-resistance. To just let life roll because you knew that you were going to get your needs met, that you were always going to have everything that you wanted and needed, and that you didn't have to resist anything. Jesus said in Matthew 5:39, resist not evil. I found this great quote from a Turkish playwright, Mehmet Adim, and I'm sure I messed up his name completely, but I want you to hear what he said. In the moments when you feel that life is unbearably heavy, surrender yourself to the circumstances for a while. When life hits you hard and makes you fall down, take rest on the ground for a while. Non-resistance will give you time to gather your strength. See, for most of us, when life isn't cooperating, when life isn't being the way we want it to be, we actually amp up. We turn up the juice. Like if life's going to be a battle, great. We'll go to battle. We'll subdue it. We'll conquer it. We'll beat it within an inch of its life. We'll make life work for us. And for most of us, the idea in the presence of a struggle to actually stop feels weak. It feels passive. It's like, no, I have a right to get my needs met, and you are going to be whatever I need you to be to get my needs met. And we actually want to conquer life. You know, that whole image in Genesis where it says that we were to conquer and subdue life. It created a mindset that we have around nature and about life that that our ego is supposed to conquer it and subdue it instead of trusting the moment and trusting the experience and trusting that our needs are always going to be met. So how do you know when you're in resistance? How do you know? And I'd like to suggest today that you know that you're in resistance the moment you're upset about anything. The moment you're upset about somebody's behavior, the moment you're upset about what this person is doing, the moment you're upset about what's happening in your life, the moment you're upset about anything, you are in resistance. That upset is the marker. It's the tell that you're in resistance. And the more upset you are, the more resistant you're being in that moment. And so over and over again, I want you just to begin to see how upset you are about anything. How much time do you spend through the course of your day being upset about your golf swing, being upset about what those people are doing in Washington, being upset about $9 gas prices, being upset about this or that or this or that. And what I want you to see is that your upset doesn't really move your life forward. It doesn't help you create what's next. It just actually blocks you in the moment from creating the experience you want or the life that you want. You're actually wasting your energy in that moment at odds with life, because how many of us have been able to get the gas prices lower by being upset at Costco? Now, if you fall down in the gas pump and kick your feet and your hands and you have a royal temper tantrum, do they come out and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am," or "I'm sorry, sir, we'll drop that down a couple bucks for you on this fill up. Thank you so much for having a temper tantrum with life, because we just didn't know how upset you were about gas prices," right? Has that ever worked for anybody? What about your own family members? When you're in the middle of a temper tantrum, does everything stop and say, "Oh, can I actually be exactly who you want me to be?" It never works. So if we actually the moment we see ourselves upset, I've got a solution. And what I want you to do, in the moment you notice yourself being upset that something's not the way it's supposed to be, at that moment, I want you to stop. Just stop. Just come to a complete stop. Psalms 23, we read this: "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures." I want you to hear that line. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Can you lie down and move at the same time? You can't move forward. You may be able to wiggle your arms or your legs, but I want you to see is how many times Spirit wants you to come to a complete stop and lie down in green pastures, to stop from your craziness, to stop from your upset, to stop in the experience and lie down in the infinite abundance of God that is all around you. Stop, lie down. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul for his name's sake. And he leadeth me on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And so what I want you to see is over and over again, the moment you notice that you're in resistance, the moment your mind is saying it shouldn't be this way, and your emotions kick in that you're upset, I want you to come to a complete stop. My grandfather, my grandmother, when my grandfather would get upset, my grandmother would make him go in the house and count to 10. Does anybody ever have to do that? Does anybody remember that? Right? So he would have to go back in the house and count to 10. And the idea was that he was supposed to calm down. I never experienced that as ever working for him. Right? He would go back in the house and he'd be so angry about having to go back in the house and count to 10 that he would just escalate, right? He just got more and more annoyed. And so what I want you to see is that until we learn to stop, really stop, we're just continuing to move through our ego desires, our woundedness, our drama. And the moment we can stop, really stop, at that moment we can make a new choice. So first thing I want you to do when you notice that you're in resistance is just stop. Then the second thing I want you to do is to begin to notice all your feelings. What are you feeling? I'm angry, I'm afraid, I'm disappointed, I'm fearful, whatever it is. I want you to really acknowledge your feelings. And then I want you to purge those feelings. I want you to give them to God. I want you to share them with a friend. I want you to write them down. I want you to purge your feelings. I want you to do the very best you can that when you come to a complete stop, because the reason that we keep moving is so that we don't have to feel our feelings. So the moment you stop, you actually have to feel your feelings. So we stop, we have to feel our feelings, and then we have to let them go. Or you can just let them stew for another 5 years, which is always an option. But you can actually just let them go. So the first thing is stop, feel your feelings, and then let them go. And then the third thing I want you to do is I want you to surrender again to God. The second principle of Alcoholics Anonymous is that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And the third principle is we made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. See, this is kind of the crux of every spiritual process. When we're in resistance, we're in that moment not really believing in God. We're believing that our ego, our personality has to make it because God's out there somewhere, but it's not in here. And the moment we surrender all the way, we stop and surrender all the way, and we let go of all of our feelings, and we, again, recommit to the will and the work of God, at that moment, we're actually back in the flow. Because sometimes life is not going to go the way you want it to go. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to get your needs met. It's just not going to happen the way your ego tells you it's supposed to, the way your head tells you it's going to. And over again, when we come back to that place of believing in God and surrendering to a power greater than our own ego, we're actually set free because at that moment, we're back in the flow. That every time you're upset, what I want you to see is you're no longer in the flow. You're not actually allowing Spirit to guide you and direct you. You're in it for your ego. You're in it to get everybody else fixed or changed or different. And the moment we surrender, the moment we come into a belief that God is in charge of my life and that I can let go, at that moment, everything changes. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Unity's understanding of denial. And denial in Unity's understanding is not psychological denial. We don't deny the situation is present, but we decide that the situation, no matter what it is, can keep us from good. We go back to that Dave, go back to the slide, will you? Thanks. When we go back and we believe that anything in the world that could keep us from our desires, that's how Unity understands denial. That a denial is moving the power off of the object, off of the situation, off of the problem, off the challenge, and moving it back into our center, back to us, back to God, back to the power that is within. And over again, when we believe that that situation out there can keep us from our good, we miss the point. From Florence Shin, page 31. And this is a different concept that I guarantee you've never heard in another book. So I just want to present it, and if it makes sense to you, use it. If it doesn't make sense, just let it go. Here we go. At one point in my life, I baptized children. And of course, they all had many names. Now I no longer do that. I don't baptize children, I baptize events. I give events the same name. If there was a failure or a problem or a situation, I baptize it with success. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I baptize this with success. And it's such a powerful concept if it rings true for you. And I want you to begin to look at everything in your life as a way of building your faith that in every situation and every day, you can baptize anything in the name of success, in the name of love, in the name of abundance, in the name of truth. You can baptize it, you can call it, you can bless it, you can decree it, and watch it transform any situation. And I want you to think right now about something in your life that maybe isn't going the way you wanted it to or thought it should. And I want you to, in your mind's eye, I want you to baptize it. I want you to see it being transformed right before your eyes, and that you have the ability through the power of baptism to transform any situation to a higher level of good, and that we can baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that we can call it into a higher level of good, and that over and over again through that power of baptism, we can lift every situation up. How many of you know what binary thinking is? You know what binary thinking is? Binary thinking is when we look at life that's either this way or that way. Yeah, it's either this or that. Now, the problem with binary thinking is that it simplifies life to two options. Now, life is never two options. There's an infinite number of ways that life can go on, right? So when we believe that if we want our life to go this way, and it goes this way, it tends to bring us into a place of resistance because we were really counting on life going this way. And one of the remedies for binary thinking is to come up with 10 possible ways anything in your life could happen. Like if you have a goal, if you have a desire, if you have a need, if you have a want, in transcending binary thinking, you have to come up with at least 10 ways it could happen, even if 3 or 4 of them are complete fantasy, right? And what happens is it gets you out of black and white thinking and opens possibilities. So when things don't happen exactly the way you think they should, it doesn't lock you down into a place of resistance. You just become more and more curious about how life could work. So does everybody have a vision for their life? We've been working on that the last couple of weeks. I want you to have a vision for your life. And one of the things I want you to do this week is to come up with at least 10 ideas on how that vision could be made a reality, even if a couple of them are just crazy, right? Just crazy, right? Because in the process of expansion, it makes you more aware and aligned with all the possibilities of God. Because if you can come up with 10, can you imagine God could come up with 1 million, maybe 2 million, maybe 50 million? So the more you're committed to your one little plan, the more it really limits the options. So here's your choice today. And I think we have 3. The three choices that are before us is, the first one is, you have a God-given right to live your life based on ego. You do. God has given us free will. You can live your life 100% out of your ego and push that your life goes exactly the way you think it's supposed to, that everybody behaves exactly the way they're supposed to, that everything matches the little image you have in your head. And you can live your life 100% out of ego, and Spirit will just love you right there. Because Spirit knows, Spirit's got time, that eventually you're going to get tired of that, right? The second way you can live your life is that every time you're upset, you notice that you're upset. And you begin to notice that your upset happens from resistance. And you notice that every time you're upset, that you have to stop and not count to 10, but you actually have to stop and identify what the feeling is that you're having. You have to become more and more self-aware. And then when you identify the feeling that you're having, my suggestion is you give it to God, and then you surrender into the moment. You surrender into the situation. You surrender into the possibility. And the third way is when you've surrendered so many times, when being upset no longer even sounds fun, and you just live a surrendered life. There are three camps. Today, you get to decide. You want to live out of your ego? Great. You want to be upset from time to time and notice it when you get upset, and then stop and surrender it, feel it and surrender it, and let it go and get back on the path? Or would you be willing just to decide today, that really wasn't that much fun? Every day, I'm going to get up and surrender everything to God. But no matter how it goes, no matter if it's my plan, if it's a different plan, no matter how it works, I'm just going to surrender to God and live non-resistant. That you get to choose. And as you choose, what I want you to see is the plan, the third plan, has a lot more peace that goes with that plan than the first two. And if peace is important to you, then that's how we get there. We get there every day. You surrender to a power greater than yourself, and you allow the infinite to guide you and to lead you, and it becomes easier and easier and easier. Will you pray with me? I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God. That today there is only one presence and one power, God the good. And we all get to decide. Do you want to believe that, or do you not want to believe that? You want to apply that to your life and surrender to it and allow yourself to live in the flow of the divine, or do you want to work against it? Struggle and push and fight, claw. That every day I let go. Every day I trust God. Every day I turn my will and my work and my life over to the one presence and the one power. And as I let go, I live a happy, free existence. As I let go, I live in grace. As I let go, everything in my life gets easier. So in the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. God bless you all. Thank you for being here today.